believe what I just saw.
Dream's absence from television coincided with allegations made as part of the Speaking Out movement.
The Velveteen Dream is accused of inappropriate conversations with actually a boy and a girl.
WWE NXT superstar Velveteen Dream has denied allegations that he had any inappropriate communication with a minor.
Did I get rid of my Miranda rights? Come on, step on out. Did I get rid of my Miranda rights? Did I get rid of my Miranda rights? Did I get rid of my Miranda rights?
When you talk about the perfect fit, the perfect balance, the right level of it, at the right time and the right place, it can often be equated to something more akin of fate or destiny rather than chance. For a young man named Patrick Clark, it would have seemed to have been more like fate than chance, but that would be until Clark became Icarus, flying way too close to the sun and crashing and burning before his flame could even ignite. And while it seems on the surface that this could all be Patrick's fault, it could also be something far more sinister, where he fell down and he kept kicking himself while he was down. This is the story of Patrick Clark and the Velveteen Dream. Patrick Clark would start his time in the professional wrestling industry in MCW Pro Wrestling, formerly known as Maryland Championship Wrestling, where he would make his professional wrestling debut just 4 short months after beginning his training. Take it from me, as someone who's been trained in wrestling and never debuted, that's saying something. According to CageMatch.net, his first match would be under the ring name of Rick Powers, and in CZW he would be wrestling under the name of Slugger Clark. But just a couple of short years after he even started training, Patrick would be signed to the WWE, wrestling on house shows for the NXT brand under his real name of Patrick Clark. This would naturally continue until midway through 2017, when on the 20th of May edition of NXT, the Velveteen Dream would be born. Clark was actually a contestant on the 6th season of the reality TV show WWE Tough Enough, a show that would see participants try to compete against one another to earn a WWE contract. In previous iterations, the show was nothing short of disappointing, mostly because of the winners never really going on to do much, maybe aside from like one. The past winners were as follows: Maven Huffman and Nydia Gwenard, I think you pronounce her name. Nydia was kind of just Jamie Noble's girlfriend, and Maven eliminated The Undertaker from the Royal Rumble, and that's it. Jackie Gator and Linda Miles, who would be known as Miss Jackie and Shaniqua while in WWE, again, not much to scream about. John Hennigan and Matt Capitelli, who would be known as Johnny Nitro / John Morrison in WWE, with him being most likely the most successful to ever come out of this show, wrestling all around the world for multiple companies, wrestling as those companies' champions, and he was champion in WWE a few times, capturing multiple different championships. Matt Capitelli, unfortunately, he never really got off the ground before his untimely and tragic passing at the mere age of 38 in 2019. Daniel Puder, who is most well remembered for shooting on Kurt Angle in a MMA-style fight on SmackDown, and then he got the absolute piss ripped out of him in the Royal Rumble as punishment.
Watch this.
Tough Enough 4 is better remembered for producing talent such as Skip Sheffield, also known as Ryback, and The Miz. 2 marginally successful people, I'd say. Ryback was pushed to the moon as soon as he got onto the main roster, and Miz is, well, The Miz. He's amazing. Season 5 of the show was kind of like a revival. It took place years later, and that was won by Andy Levine, who is now retired. Also, that season is far more remembered for host Stone Cold Steve Austin being absolutely flabbergasted at the lack of passion from Ariane Andrew.
What's your favorite match?
Melina and Alicia Fox.
Who got signed anyway. And then finally we have season 6, where Josh Bredel and Sarah Lee would win, with Josh having himself banned from the NXT locker room before being released from his contract and retiring from wrestling entirely. See what I mean about this being very disappointing? Sarah Lee, who was married to fellow professional wrestler Wesley Blake, would be unfortunately released from WWE in September of 2016, and then 15 months later would again tragically pass away, this time because of an overdose of alcohol and sleeping pills. Wrestling is one of the most depressing things that you can watch. You might have noticed though that at no point during that list of wrestlers there that I mentioned the name of Patrick Clark at any point at all. Well, that was due to the fact that Clark would be eliminated from Season 6, Episode 5 due to his overall cockiness and his lack of humility. And this was pretty shocking at the time because Clark was actually leaps and bounds ahead of every other contestant. But he also knew it, which, you know, it kind of went to his head. At the beginning of May 2017 though, vignettes would start to play of Clark debuting a character named Velveteen Dream, where he was basically the sports entertainment version of Prince, not the artist formerly known as Prince, that's Shinsuke Nakamura. From the get-go, we can see a very polished and mature performance from someone who, by all accounts, should have still been green as hell. But no, Dream was actually faultless in his first few matches, never ever really putting a foot wrong. In fact, his first major storyline was a feud with Aleister Black, aka Malachi Black, aka Tommy End. He'll always be Tommy End to me. And when you think back to WWE storylines and wrestling storylines in general, they never have much sense to them. They're usually just a convoluted mess of family drama.
I wish you died in the womb!
Undead magicians.
Death waits for no one.
Funeral homes.
I screwed your brains out.
Wait.
This fat son of a bitch is gonna try us all out.
Calm down, okay? Alright?
He's fat!
And sometimes even math.
But then you take my 75% chance of winning. If we used to go one-on-one and then add 66 and 2/3%, I got 141 and 2/3 chance of winning at sacrifice. See, Joe, the numbers don't lie, and they spell disaster for you at sacrifice.
But in this instance, Black and Dream were feuding over the fact that Black refused to say the name Velveteen Dream, often instead to just call him Patrick Clark. It was a story of respect, a story of the runt of the litter pretending to be something that he wasn't. And to that end, Black didn't believe in the dream. And when the two would eventually clash at TakeOver War Games 2017, Dream would lose to Black. But this was a very, very rare instance of a loss being a good thing, because after the match, Black would grab a microphone and then, sitting Indian style in the ring, he would say,
"Enjoy infamy, Velveteen Dream."
And the arena went nuts. Dream had earned the respect of the man who did not respect him in the slightest. And despite the loss, Dream would start flying. From here, Dream would go on to have decent to great matches consistently, featuring matches against Cassius Ohno, Ricochet, EC3, Tommaso Ciampa, even capturing the WWE NXT North American Championship and having even more great matches against Matt Riddle, Tyler Breeze, Pete Dunne, and Roderick Strong. He even had one of the best cinematic matches in a backlot brawl against Adam Cole. And throughout what was essentially 3 short years on the NXT brand, Dream was only ever really going to be stopped by Dream. And if you have a look at his CageMatch.net match history, you can see nothing but consistency before a few stumbling blocks are hit, with the end coming so abruptly that no one a few years prior could have seen it coming. You see, while Velveteen Dream was an incredible athlete, phenomenal on the mic, and just made for the squared circle, the Velveteen Dream's worst enemy would turn out to be Patrick Clark. Partway through April in 2020, just 2 days after the live broadcast of the April 22nd edition of NXT TV, 2 posts would appear on Reddit. At around 9 in the morning here in Britain, a post would appear on r/squared circle entitled Velveteen Dream Hacked? The post in question, which has since been removed from the subreddit and the account that posted it deleted, read as follows. He posted on his Instagram story that his DMs were open, and now he's genuinely sending my friends and I messages of a sexual nature. I'd like to think this is a hacker, but I don't know. How do I begin to approach this? How do I contact WWE? I have proof. Edit. Here's proof. Edit. He blocked me on Instagram after I wouldn't send him an uncensored nude pic back. Edit. I'm really worried about all this. Does anyone have legal advice or whatnot? I'm thinking of deleting this and getting it to police instead. Edit. I'm 17, my friends are 15 and 16. Edit. The evidence that it is him is as follows. His phone number is Washington area code. His voice in the calls was accurate. It was off of his verified Instagram account, and the picture he sent is believable. Once that post went live, everyone began scrambling, but the majority of the comments kind of rang out in the same way with an echo of, why are you posting this on social media rather than contacting the authorities? If Dream was legitimately asking for and sending nudes with minors involved, that is a crime, and proof of said crime should be given to investigators, and those investigators will then have the power to make an arrest of the accused while they investigate. Later that same day, another post would appear on r/squared circle. This time, it was titled, Audio of Velveteen Dream interacting with minors over DMs appears online. In this one, there's a screen recording which captures a small amount of messages that were allegedly exchanged by Clark and his accuser. And in this clip, there's a voice message sent by Clark's side of the conversation. And in the recording, we hear a very short clip of a voice saying, "What school do you go to?"
What school do you go to?
The claim is that this clip, this voice message, was sent to an underage girl. I just want to point out as well in this comment section, there's a little string of comments that I'd like to point out just because of how I felt when I was originally reading this whole thing unfold. Golden Devilman would write, "What I don't understand is, how could a public person be so stupid to do this, and in the case of Dream, right when he's in the middle of a big push? I just don't get it." Another user would reply, "You won't. Ever. Because your brain isn't wired that way. It's like that American show where they caught pedos live on TV. The show was running in the same city, and people still tried it on with underage girls and boys, and got caught. That show ran for 3 years, and people still risked it." A third person would reply to the second person, saying, "I work in sex addiction treatment, and you're 100% right. Typically when someone is soliciting minors, it's because of one of two things. Either it's a natural escalation of an untreated sex addiction, or the result of experiencing childhood sexual abuse. In the case of addiction, by nature of the disorder, you don't respond to negative consequences and engage in increasingly risky behaviour. In the case of childhood sexual abuse, your arousal template has been modified to incorporate children, and it's also a natural response to recreate one's trauma. In both cases, your brain has been rewired. However, it doesn't change the fact that victimizing others is never okay, even if you're caught in the cycle of abuse yourself." That's just something that I wanted to highlight because it was something that I was definitely struggling to wrap my head around with at the time. I mean, I'm pretty sure I even commented on this, and I'm pretty sure I said something that I was dubious over the whole thing at the time, because why would anyone do this sort of thing with their verified work account of all things? This quite obviously would blow the hell up and will be plastered all over social media and the dirt sheets before, and just as quickly as it sprang up, the people accusing Clark of this behaviour stopped. And most of the accounts would kind of just disappear. Most, I say. It was odd, but hey, maybe this had been passed on to the authorities, and they'd been asked to stop posting things, otherwise it would hinder the investigation. However, as far as I can tell, there's never actually ever been anything official that's came out of this. There aren't any arrest warrants of this nature, and we'll get to arrest warrants in a short little bit, but there's nothing against Clark's name of this nature, and he's not a registered sex offender on any registered sex offenders list of any place in America. If he'd been found guilty, he'd be on one of these registers. Later, again, still on the same day of April 24th, 2020, Clark would post an update to his Instagram on his story with the following text post. "Be assured I did not communicate inappropriately with anyone. A private photo of mine was shared without my consent or knowledge, and I am working with a third party to look into this matter." That third party would never end up being revealed, but things genuinely went silent after that. Until the August 12th edition of NXT TV, where the main event of that show would be a North American Championship ladder match qualification match, which would be a triple threat between Cameron Grimes, Kushida, and the Velveteen Dream. Grimes would win that match, but the biggest story was that Dream was back, and everyone was a little bit mystified. You also have to remember at this time as well, the world is shut down. It's COVID, but NXT was operating out of Florida, and Florida's gonna Florida, I guess. There was no one really in attendance for any of the matches over this time, except for talent who was acting as a crowd. In a conversation, which I'm not entirely sure if it's with CBS Sports, or if was a conference call and CBS were the ones that reported on it, but here's the story anyway. But Paul Levesque, aka Triple H, who was running NXT at the time, addressed Dream's absence up until a certain point being down to a car crash. But where did that come from? Well, as it transpires, Clark had actually been involved in an actual car accident on June 26th of that year and ended up being hospitalized with unknown injuries. CBS had actually been the ones to press the matter and asked about the allegations that had been put forward against Velveteen Dream. And Triple H would respond with the following. You know, in this day-to-day, accusations are made and you take them all very seriously. You look into them the best you can and you find out what is there and what isn't. In this situation, Clark was also involved in a car accident. That's what took him off TV. In the moment, all this other stuff happens and you look into it and you find that there is a situation that people bring to everyone's attention. You look into it and you find that it is what it is and there's nothing there. Everything that we have done, we are comfortable with him continuing to do what he does and everything else. But he had a car accident. It stemmed down to people thought we removed him from TV for different reasons. We didn't. He was in a car accident. Once he was medically cleared to be able to return to the ring from his car accident, we continued forward the way we did. We looked into what was there and we didn't find anything. Those are some big words, and WWE is a big company. They have the resources to investigate things like this, or at least I'd like to believe that they would investigate allegations like this with the utmost concern and virtuosity. But if they found nothing, then maybe they actually did find nothing. And maybe, just maybe, the Instagram thing was a wild goose chase, or a hack, or something else, and the allegations were actually false. And the main reason that I'm suggesting that this could have been this is that he didn't actually receive any public punishment for this, nor face charges, nor any notion of settling out of court. And while Dream was officially back on our screens, it wouldn't take long before Dream would be taken down again by Patrick Clark. Like I just mentioned, Dream was back on TV and he had just beaten Finn Balor to qualify for the North American Championship ladder match at TakeOver 30. And to be candid, WWE wouldn't just waste a loss to Finn Balor on just anyone. If you know, you know, but for those that don't, Finn Balor is an NXT legend, and he was treated as such. As soon as he went to the main roster, he almost immediately became a world champion. or at least Universal Champion. The inaugural one, at that. During the time Dream was on WWE television, the backlash online never really went away, and for the most part, WWE was still broadcasting during COVID, as I've already mentioned. So there was no fans in attendance to really voice their opinions. They couldn't be gauged to what level of reception Velveteen Dream would receive from attending fans. After his TakeOver 30 appearance in that ladder match, he would make just 5 more appearances for the company before disappearing entirely, and one of those appearances was actually at TakeOver 31 as well. After 2020 was over, 5 months of inactivity for Velveteen Dream would follow, and WWE would quietly release Clark from the company. Ordinarily, WWE would release statements alongside any future endeavours that are made, and in 2021, it was an absolute massacre for the company, and I think there was around 80 superstars that were released from the company, and they were all mostly released in cost-cutting measures, since COVID was making the company basically hemorrhage money. I mean, they'd like you to think that, but WWE makes money hand over fist, so they just wanted to make the books look better. It's normally something short, like this one for Bray Wyatt, R.I.P. Wyndham. It's literally 2 sentences long, but Clark got nothing. No press release from the company or anything like that, and it was only confirmed from the dirt sheets, and I believe it was PW Insider who first broke the story, and then I think Dave Meltzer corroborated soon after. The timeline of events then gets really messy from this point, but I think I've got it nailed down as best I can. So there was a police report that would surface from the Altamonte Springs Police Department, and I'm just going to go ahead and read you some of the highlights from this report because it's something. On November 17th, 2021, it also says 2018 for some reason, but I'm going to guess it meant 2021. At approximately 23:38 hours, I was conducting stationary surveillance at the Days Inn located at 150 South Westmonte Drive, which is a well-known narcotics area of the city. I noticed a blue Dodge Challenger bearing a Florida temporary tag driving around the property with no lights on. I then began to drive east, maintaining visual of the blue Dodge Challenger, who still had no headlights on. Due to my vehicle being stopped at a red traffic light, I requested Officer Belt to assist me with a traffic stop. Belt activated his emergency blue and red lights to conduct a traffic stop on the vehicle. Sitting inside, I observed a black male later identified as Patrick Clark, who was speaking with Officer Belt. While standing outside the passenger door, I observed Clark pull a small clear baggie containing a white powdery substance out of his wallet. Clark proceeded to open the baggie, placing the white powdery substance onto the side of his left hand in a line pattern. Based on my training and experience, I recognized this white powdery substance to be cocaine. At that time, Clark began to sniff the white powdery substance up his nose. I began to wave Belt over to the vehicle for assistance. I then began to tell Clark to drop the baggie and to place his hands in the air. During this time, Clark was attempting to conceal the small clear baggie in between the driver's seat and the center console, with the substance spilling on the driver's seat as well as his person. Clark then exited the vehicle and was handcuffed for further investigation. Read Clark his Miranda rights, which he stated he understood and was willing to speak with me. Clark said he in fact was inhaling an illegal substance which he identified as cocaine. So obviously Clark didn't see Officer Carlos Rivera? I don't know, it's a bad photocopy, but I was actually able to find a PFC Carlos Rivera through the Altamonte Springs Police Department on Facebook. But anyway, Clark obviously didn't see him on the passenger side of the car, and this is mentioned further down in the report. But obviously Clark was trying to get rid of the cocaine, but why would you snort it first? Were you trying to get rid of all of it? And then thought, oh, this is too much, I'll just put it down the seat. It doesn't make sense, really. The substance would be tested at the scene and it would actually come back as positive for cocaine. At the time this happened, this wasn't really a gigantic story. I don't remember anything on it coming out until August of 2022, when Clark would be arrested again. Twice. In 1 week. On August 20th, 2022, Clark would be arrested by Orlando PD on misdemeanor charges of battery and trespass on a property, having already been told to leave. He would plead not guilty to this accusation, and the arraignment hearing, which was scheduled to take place in September, would actually be cancelled. But then just 6 days later, Clark would be arrested yet again in Orange County on an out-of-county warrant for a violation of probation, and that links to the 2021 arrest for cocaine. The arrest on the 20th seems to have been the result of an altercation at a gym, Club Orlando, between Clark and an employee of the gym, and that employee had asked Clark to leave the area of the gym because that area was closed for cleaning, to which, and according to the employee, Clark became irate and argumentative, and it got to the point where Clark was asked to leave the gym entirely. The documents for this from the police claim that Clark threatened to kill the employee before hitting the guy in the face, with a fight then ensuing, during which Clark bit the employee. Because that's normal behaviour. The two would be separated by a completely different employee, and when the cops saw that the man had teeth marks on his left chest near to his left armpit, Clark was arrested. And at that point, Clark had actually been angling for some kind of return to the professional wrestling industry, and that just blew up in his face. There would be a TMZ video actually released with him being arrested, and oh boy, that is embarrassing. There's nothing short of anything other than embarrassing.
I'm not trying to cause this issue. This dude's been a douchebag. Am I being arrested?
Yes, you are.
For what, sir?
Battery.
For battery?
Yeah.
Can you show me? Oh my God. I didn't do anything wrong. What are you talking about? I didn't do anything wrong.
There's a bag in there.
This is illegal. This is illegal, sir. This is illegal. This is illegal, sir. This is crazy. I work for the WWE. This is crazy. You fucked up. I was not giving my Miranda rights before I was put in this vehicle. So guess what? Hold that shit to you, sir. Hold that shit. Don't act like you did not fuck up. You and your buddies fucked up. Did I get rid of my Miranda rights?
Come on, step on out.
Did I get rid of my Miranda rights? Did I get rid of my Miranda rights? Did I get rid of my Miranda rights? Did I get rid of my Miranda rights?
Walk over this way.
You fucked up, baby. You fucked up, baby. You fucked up, baby. That's number one. How'd you fucked up the Miranda rights? How'd you fucked up the Miranda rights, sir? What are you, a rookie? What are you, a rookie?
By this point, things couldn't get much worse for Clark. Until another accusation would come out. More like Velveteen Nightmare, am I right? That's an awful joke. I'm probably going to cut that. On the 4th of September 2022, a podcast that was ran by the channel Sports Skeeter named The Wrestling Outlaws, which seems not the greatest on the surface, and that's purely down to the fact that Vince Russo is the host of the podcast, and I trust Vince Russo about as much as I trust a chocolate teapot at this point. But an episode came out, and the guest of this episode was a man named Michael Hutter, better known to people in the wrestling world as Ethan Carter III, or just EC3. And EC3 made a wild accusation that, if true, should have been pushed to the authorities, but again, it never was. So, who's to say how valid this accusation is? But let's get into it. Side note, as you can probably tell, whenever there's a crime, police are involved. But for some reason, whenever there's an accusation of a crime, police never get involved. Do with that what you will. EC3, when he was asked about Clark by the hosts, I'm guessing they saw that Clark had been arrested and they wanted to jump on that story as relevant and topical at the time. When asked about Clark, EC3 would say that Clark had demons in his closet and mentioned that while in NXT there was always some form of speculation on Clark being a little bit off, before switching to talking about a party that EC3 had at his house. And he accused Clark, who was invited to the party by EC3, of leaving his phone in the bathroom with the camera on and set up in a way that appeared to be trying to record people urinating. What? EC3 would also, in a roundabout way, accuse Clark of being on some form of substance by saying, that was a headache to read, so I'm probably just going to play the clip.
We had a party and it was at my place, and he came over because I'm being friendly and I'm top guy, and I try to welcome everybody into a thing, and he left his phone in my bathroom with the camera on trying to capture people taking pisses. So there. How'd I know? Because it's my bathroom, and I walk in there and I see a phone selfie style, propped up, on filming, where if somebody is going to take a pee, they would have their phallus out urinating into the water. I'm not gonna lie to you too, this was a late evening of partying, so maybe there were a few cocktails shared. Who knows what everyone else was on? Because as we know, what he'll do in front of a cop, Lord only knows what he'd do behind a cop's back.
Did you confront them?
I took the phone, I stopped the recording, I made sure the PP video of my wee was deleted.
Very nice.
Because that was happening in my home, by the way. So delete, put it back, turn it back on so it didn't look like somebody, so it looked like it was still happening, the big elaborate ruse. I walk out of my own bathroom, because this is where I live, and I sit on the couch and I wait. And he goes right back to the bathroom. And I go back in right after that. Phone's gone. I'm like, I can't believe this.
He also mentioned some unnamed talents were probably doing other things in the bathroom as well, and I don't know if he's alluding to more drug use or if he's talking about something of a sexual nature or what, but he told everyone to leave and that the party was over after this, but he did combine in a select number of people of what happened, ending that little chunk of the interview by saying, "What do you do with something like this? I'm an adult male who's been violated in his own home in a sense, and who knows what else is going on." And it is one hell of an accusation to throw out there. It seems like something just vehemently horrible to make up, which makes you a little bit more inclined to believe that it's true, because why would someone make this up? It wouldn't take long for Clark to make a reply to this accusation, as he took to his social media and went live on Instagram in response to these allegations. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to play the video here, because it's a rant and it's hard to pick out little lines here and there. It's just a big convoluted mess. So take it away.
EC3 has talked to the dirt sheets. I guess since I'm on TMZ now, I'm somebody again. EC3 has gone to the dirt sheets saying that if you haven't seen it, he had a party at his house one night, and if I'm to be correct, this was about 2017, 2018 EC3. I'm not going to tell people who was at this party out of respect for our mutual friends, but one of our mutual friends is a former NXT talent that no longer works for the WWE, and the other person is a current Monday Night Raw talent who used to wrestle talent for NXT. Okay, Mike, EC3, you go out here after I give you the best match you've ever had in your entire career. You go out here and you dirt. I'm tired of people throwing dirt on my name. You throw this dirt on my name saying that I tried to record you in your bathroom. Let's be honest, Mike. You're leaving out a lot of details. What were we doing that night, Mike? What type of powder was on the table, Mike? Okay? Okay, let's be real. So let's not leave out all the details. We were all drunk. You were pissy drunk because you were in your place. You were damn near passed out in the corner. You and your homegirl, whichever chick you were screwing at the time, okay? And the other two people, our mutual friends, were there. I left my phone on your bathroom counter. And because you were not sure of my sexuality at the time because of the character I played on TV and because we're not friends in real life at all, you try to accuse me of recording you in your own home. So what did I do? I went to our mutual friend who no longer works for the WWE, former NXT talent, and I showed him my phone and had him go through my photos and videos and my recently deleted, just to prove to you and the other person that was there, who, because I respect him and he has a job, okay, I'm not gonna put him out there, okay, I had him prove to you that I was not recording you. Cocaine is a hell of a drug, EC3. Get your shit together. And if anyone would like to go to my friends list right now and check out who follows me, because I'm not following him, EC3 is a follower of mine. I would really think that if you thought that much of me, that you couldn't trust me, you definitely wouldn't be following me on social media, on Instagram, all these years later, EC3. You're pathetic. Now control that narrative, you asshole. How the hell you turn this shit off?
I honestly don't know what to believe at this point anymore. Not a thing. I don't know what to believe. EC3 would yet again take to the Wrestling Outlaws podcast to defend himself from what Clark had said by saying that he did in fact try to record EC3 taking a leak. I'm not reading it again, here's EC3.
Really, what else can I say? Let me just dust off my 3-line shirt there. What else could I possibly even say or bother to address? It's done. He recorded people trying to urinate in my bathroom. That's the truth. You asked me a question regarding this man who I haven't thought about in many years, and that story came to mind. WWE employees thanked me for telling that story out loud, so there is no thought of bringing him back to the company from those said employees. I was 100% sharp that night because no matter how much alcohol you have in life, you do not forget the fact you walk into a restroom to see a camera recording looking directly at the toilet. So, no, there's no cloudiness about that. And all the accusations of confusion about who he was and we're not friends, it's childish banter. It's very unfortunate, and I'm very sorry he's going through such a hard time, especially with the law and obvious drug issues that he was arrested for. So if we can all just band together and forgive him for those, and you know what, it's your choice if you want to forgive him for anything else he's alleged of or accused of, that's on you. I, myself, forgive Patrick for everything he's ever done or said about me.
100% sharp, he said, by the way. And I don't believe that for a second. No one's going to have a party like that in that environment and not drink or do whatever everybody else was doing at that party. Just don't buy it. But in the end, EC3 threw yet another log onto the wood burner of Clark. So when you look at this whole thing, when you take a step back and look at it as a broader scale, you've got a very talented young wrestler who was accused of having inappropriate interactions with minors, filming colleagues in private situations without their consent, arrests and drug use, with apparently him being quietly suspended from WWE at one point when he was in NXT for a wellness policy violation, but I've only ever found one story on that. But anyway, on the surface, he actually just kind of seems to be a walking red flag. Or is he? Or is he just a guy who lost his dream job because of falsities and the house of cards came tumbling down around him? The only thing that he was ever really charged on was the drug use, since the assault and trespass charge was dropped. After this, the odd rumour will pop up here and there. Maybe Clark's going to return, maybe he's not, we don't know. But anything that popped up rumour-wise was quashed quicker than it popped up. And that was kind of the end of it all. Until at the very, very start of 2024, Clark would release an apology video in which he owns up to his past mistakes and apologises to everyone that he feels he ever wronged. And that is a very, very rare instance of someone who was a public figure taking responsibility for their actions. So I do have to applaud that. And I've really been wanting to make this video for a very, very long time. I wanted to make a video that was like the rise and fall of the Velveteen Dream. And then the apology video came out, and I was like, never a better time to do it. But I was going to wind this video down right here with some sort of conclusion that the reason the Velveteen Dream died was because of Patrick Clark. But then that was until a bizarre coincidence of timing occurred. As in, the day I wrote the sentence that I'm saying right now, the interview wasn't out yet. But Canadian journalist Chris Van Vliet would make a post on Instagram advertising Insight with Chris Van Vliet episode number 557 with this post description. When I sat down with Patrick Clark for this interview, he told me nothing was off limits and that he wanted to set the record straight. The full interview will go live tomorrow. So yeah, this video that you're watching right now, this was actually delayed because finally we were about to get the full story from his side of the story. No walking on eggshells, no hidden meanings. We would finally get to know Clark's side of things. Because, let's be real, he's never come out and publicly said anything about anything here apart from the EC3 accusation. So when Chris asks why Clark had actually never addressed the allegations in the last 3 years, Clark would reply with the following. Well, one, I thought common sense would address most of it, but a lot of us know out there common sense is not so common. The allegations levied against me, 2 very harsh ones, involved inappropriate communications with minors, and so we don't narrow this thing down, that's anyone who is not of legal age, I'll assume 18 years or younger, who is not considered a legal adult and you're having inappropriate communications with them. And that's either to solicit something from them or you just don't have positive thoughts. Chris would also say, you were called a groomer, and Clark would reply to this, yeah, a groomer. That wasn't all I was called. I've been called a pedophile, I've been called a pedo, nonce, very hurtful and very damaging titles to give a person. I didn't earn that. I don't have a history of malicious acts towards anyone. I never have. Everyone's got a past. Everyone's got lessons they learn from and they grow through. Everyone's got a past. Not everyone has a history. And a history is a repeated behaviour, repeated offences, over and over and over again. And I've never, ever had a history. I've been around my co-workers' children. Hell, in my personal life, I did JRTC for 10 years, and that is Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps, for those that don't know. I did Young Marines from the age of 8 years old in 2003 up until the age of 18 years old. I've been in leadership positions around people drastically younger than me, and that was for that time at 18. I'm guiding youth from 8 to 18 at a young age then. I've never, in this life or my last life, and I don't plan on it in the next life, to ever have such maliciousness and malcontent in my heart to want to do harm like that to anyone. Also, side note, I do think everybody should go and watch this interview because it is a different vibe from how I'm saying it. There's a lot more hesitation in his answers. I can't tell if it's him being calculated or if it's him really thinking about his answers so he doesn't say the right thing, or he does say the right thing, I should say, or if it's him just genuinely going into this interview with a blank mind and just answering with the first thing that comes to his head. When asked about the screenshots of conversations between himself and the minors in question, Clark says that those were never conversations that he had, and the images that had been released, they were all false, and then produces a bunch of receipts. He names 4 social media accounts that pushed out and perpetuated the allegations, all of which aren't accessible anymore on social media, and labels everything they put out as doctored. When Chris tried to get a definitive answer to if these are real conversations or not, Clark says that he never had these conversations at all and that they're fake. He also says that the only social media account he had at that time were his Velveteen Dream accounts, and that he did have a phone conversation with a one Jacob Schmidt, but he never typed anything or said anything that could have been taken in a way that would have been deemed inappropriate. He's then asked why would he want to be friends with a 16-year-old, and Clark answers by saying it was more of a mentorship, that he had wanted to help young people who wanted to get into the wrestling industry, which seems iffy but not impossible. I mean, personally, I was part of a wrestling company that trained people from the ages of 16 and up, so I do understand in a way. But the social media aspect of it is, again, iffy at best. He would go on to list a bunch of people in the entertainment industry who had been accused and subsequently convicted of crimes of a similar nature to what he had actually been accused of. And he questions, how could he be accused of such horrendous and heinous things and have literally nothing come of them while being in a prominent position on an international television program at that time, and nothing happened? And in a sense, I 100% agree with that statement. We live in a world where evidence is king. Right now, just on YouTube, Right now, we have someone named Mama Max who is accusing someone of hellacious crimes and has called out a bunch of people on it. And from the videos that I've watched of Mutahar, Caleb and Charlie, I've been able to gather that Max doesn't want you to look into the evidence when you need to convict someone with evidence. Calling out massive creators to hold someone accountable while doxing them without producing a shred of evidence makes you look very, very strange at best. Do you know how badly that can go for someone? Both the accused and the person accusing them, should this be found to be false? It's insanely serious, and evidence will always be king. It's why things like the Innocence Project exists, and it's why a lot of the time, if people get falsely convicted, it's thanks to either false testimony or bad testimony or police corruption rather than bad evidence. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, but the evidence says that it's a loon and the DNA and the science say that it's a loon, it's a fucking loon. But the accusations of being a duck never go away. About halfway through the interview, Clark goes on to a post that was made by a one Joshua Fuller. The relationship between Fuller and Clark, in Clark's words, was purely a mentorship. From what I can gather, Fuller was a wrestling hopeful at the time, and he is now a professional wrestler. Fuller would make a post on Twitter exposing Clark during the #SpeakingOut movement, in which many professional wrestlers spoke their truths about being exploited or worse from within the professional wrestling industry. Buried within the wall of text that Fuller posted, Clark highlights a few lines, some of which read, "There weren't any direct advances made at that time, but everybody I spoke to would tell me he was trying to come on to me, and Patrick was never directly sexual to me." How can Fuller say this and then at the end of the wall of text say, "Patrick Clark is a child predator and should not be succeeding in the wrestling business"? Those sentences do not jive together for me. Chris in the interview even says, "That's an interesting thing to point out, because this has been for the last 3 years. There's a lot of people that have made you guilty in the court of public opinion, that this has been a sexual thing. For the accuser to say here, I would like to say that Patrick was never directly sexual to me, doesn't seem like it's really been brought up." And again, if this was an actual court with actual lawyers and an actual trial with real jurors at the side, the defense team for Clark would latch onto these words and grill Fuller extensively on that. And unless Fuller could come up with an impenetrable response, the jury is going to look at that with confusion at best for Fuller's sake. Not to mention that all of this had been publicly addressed by Triple H through an official WWE channel of media communication. So who's lying? Is it Clark? Is it Fuller? Is it Levesque? Who is it? Because someone is lying here. Someone. I don't know who it is, but there's someone fucking lying. In the interest of full disclosure, I did try reaching out to Fuller through Twitter to get a response to the interview from him, but he never opened the messages before this video was done recording. There might be a quick cut here where he does respond, but I doubt it at this point. However, he did like a quote tweet of the announcement of this interview, with the quote tweet saying, "Dynamic Mr. Beast style captions for pedo allegations are wild." And to that extent, I do agree. Clark then does go on to address the other things that happened in his life, such as the arrests, and I think he's reading things a little bit wrong at first, because he says the cocaine arrest happened in 2022, but the document itself says 2021, so I'm not sure what to make of that. But in reference to the fight at the gym, Clark does admit to biting that employee, and he even goes as far as to address the camera directly and apologizes to the man that he assaulted and thanks him for forgiving him and not pressing charges. In reference to the drug charges, he says that he didn't do it in front of the cop, but that would mean, I guess, the cop lying in that report? I don't know. It seems a bit strange, but he definitely says that he didn't do it in front of him. From what I can remember, it's that it just fell out of his wallet. In reference to the accusation that was put forth by EC3, Clark denies that he ever filmed EC3 in his bathroom and reiterates his claim that EC3 was high on cocaine that night, despite EC3 saying that he just doesn't do drugs. He again reiterates that he has a past, but not a history, and asks why he would have his phone out recording anything when there's cocaine involved, something that could easily have gotten any one of the talent that was there that night fired from the pinnacle of the wrestling industry that is WWE. Not to mention the fact that there has actually been nothing legal or official brought up against him in this case. One thing that I'd actually like to highlight as well was that Chris actually asks that since the Velveteen Dream name is owned by WWE, would Clark wrestle again outside of the WWE and not as Velveteen Dream? And Clark says, I wouldn't want to. I mean, he lived and he died in the same breath. He was loud, he was condescending, he was all the things you don't want in a person that you tell you love. The dream is not over, but the Velveteen Dream is. Again, I would highly recommend watching this interview for yourself and then drawing your own conclusions from there. Watch the full thing, don't skip, don't have anything else on, because I think it's a very telling interview. But I think the bigger argument that should be made here is a lesson in cancel culture and being held responsible for everything. If the allegations that were made against Clark were in fact true, that should have been followed up on by police. But because it wasn't, should he be held accountable for something that he potentially didn't even do? The law of most countries in the civilized world will say innocent until proven guilty, but because it happened on Twitter, it's automatically true? For me personally, I think this is a lesson, because after what happened to a man named Vincent, also known as Inquisitor 3, who was a cosplayer who was falsely accused of inappropriate interactions with a minor. Inquisitor 3 committed suicide because he couldn't take the hate that was so violently and wrongly coming his way. And it was only after he died that the truth came out. And as far as I'm aware, no one has been held accountable for that, and that is a terrifying fact. The internet is a scary place. My biggest takeaway from this interview is that Patrick Clark has taken accountability for his actions in drug use, violence, throwing away the most promising career that had the biggest names in the wrestling industry singing his praises, and wasting all of the time and effort that legitimate legends of the industry had put into him. He claims he's now a calmer person, a sober person, and seems to be at peace with where he is in life in general. But in the last 3 years, he never came out and defended himself until now, and frankly, I genuinely don't know where I stand on it. So, I'll leave you with this. If Clark is full of shit, he should be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. If Clark is innocent, he should return to wrestling immediately, and his accusers should be held fully accountable in every way possible. Cancel culture sets a dangerous precedent, and so does not going to the police. And that was the story of the cancellation of the dream. This is a very, very timely thing, considering what's just come out about Vincent Kennedy McMahon. So, take away what you will from this, but one of these cases has law enforcement involved with the courts, and one of them doesn't. I'll leave it at that. And remember, there's nothing wrong with finding comfort in the death and darkness.